Journey with Joseph, the dreamer whose colorful coat reminds us that God's plan shines bright through every twist and turn. Long ago, in the land of Canaan, lived a man named Jacob, also called Israel. He had 12 sons, and his youngest, Joseph, was his favorite. Joseph was different from his brothers. He was cheerful, kind, and always ready to help his father. His brothers often grumbled, jealous of the attention Joseph received. Jacob loved Joseph so much that he gave him a special gift, a beautiful coat made of many colors. It shimmered in the sunlight like a rainbow, and made Joseph feel very loved. Joseph's brothers felt a spark of jealousy grow into anger. "Why does father love him more than us?" they murmured. But Joseph didn't let their frowns steal his joy. At night, Joseph often gazed at the stars. He dreamed of doing something important for God and his family, though he didn't yet understand how. One night, Joseph had a strange dream that would change his life forever. Joseph awoke one morning bursting with excitement. "I had the most amazing dream," he said, running to his brothers. "In my dream," Joseph said, "we were tying bundles of wheat in the field. Suddenly, my bundle stood tall, and all of your bundles bowed down to it." The brothers crossed their arms and frowned. "Do you think you will rule over us?" they snapped. Their jealousy grew like a fire. Another night, Joseph had a second dream. He told his father and brothers, "This time, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to me." Even Jacob, who loved Joseph dearly, warned him, "Must your mother and I bow down to you too?" But deep in his heart, he wondered if Joseph's dreams were from God. Joseph didn't know what his dreams truly meant, but God was preparing him for a great destiny. One day, Jacob said to Joseph, "Go and check on your brothers in the fields, and bring me word of how they are doing." Joseph eagerly set out, his colorful coat bright in the sun. He didn't notice his brothers glaring as he approached from far away. "Here comes the dreamer," one brother sneered. "Let's get rid of him, and we'll see what becomes of his dreams." Reuben, the eldest, shook his head. "No, don't kill him. Throw him into that empty pit instead." He secretly planned to rescue Joseph later. As Joseph reached them, the brothers pounced. They tore off his colorful coat and tossed him into the pit. Joseph's cries echoed in the empty well. While they ate lunch nearby, a caravan of traders appeared in the distance. Judah whispered, "Let's sell him instead. That way we won't have blood on our hands." The brothers waved to the traders, who stopped by the pit. For 20 pieces of silver, Joseph was sold to the Ishmaelite merchants. Joseph looked back with tears in his eyes as the caravan carried him away. His brothers turned their faces, hiding their guilt. The brothers took Joseph's colorful coat, dipped it in goat's blood, and returned home to deceive their father. When Jacob saw the blood-stained coat, he cried out in anguish, "A wild animal must have devoured my son." He wept and refused to be comforted. Meanwhile, the traders traveled long and far, carrying Joseph across hot desert sands toward the mighty land of Egypt. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, the captain of Pharaoh's guard. Though far from home, Joseph knew God's plan was not finished. Joseph arrived at Potiphar's grand estate, surrounded by palm trees and guarded gates. Though he was a servant, Joseph worked hard and trusted in God. Everything Joseph touched seemed to succeed. Potiphar noticed this, and made him the overseer of his entire household. With God's favor on Joseph, the house of Potiphar thrived. Crops grew plentiful, and the servants admired his leadership. But Potiphar's wife often watched Joseph. She admired his strength and kindness, and one day, she tried to tempt him to do wrong. Joseph refused her every time. "I cannot sin against God or betray Potiphar's trust," he said with firm resolve. Though temptation surrounded him, Joseph stayed faithful. God was with him, preparing him for a greater purpose he could not yet see. One day, Joseph entered the house to do his work, and none of the other servants were inside. Suddenly, Potiphar's wife grabbed his cloak and said, "Come with me." Joseph pulled free and ran out of the house, leaving his cloak in her hands. He chose obedience to God over sin, even if it cost him everything. Angry and humiliated, she called out to the other servants and lied. "Joseph tried to harm me. Look, he left his cloak here." When Potiphar returned, his wife repeated the lie. Potiphar's face darkened with anger. Without a trial, he had Joseph thrown into the king's prison. Joseph was innocent, but now he sat in a cold, dark cell. Yet even there, he felt God's presence. Even in prison, Joseph kept his faith. He knew that God's plans were bigger than any lie or unfair suffering. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Yet Joseph stayed faithful in prison. He worked hard and treated everyone with kindness. The prison warden noticed Joseph's good character. Soon, he placed Joseph in charge of other prisoners and trusted him with important tasks. One morning, two of Pharaoh's officials, a cupbearer and a baker, joined Joseph in the prison. Both looked troubled and worried. Joseph asked, "Why are you so sad today?" They replied, "We had strange dreams, but no one can tell us what they mean." Joseph said, "Interpretations belong to God. Tell me your dreams." The cupbearer and baker shared their dreams, and God gave Joseph the meaning of each one. Just as Joseph said, the cupbearer was restored to Pharaoh's service, but the baker was executed. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him, but he forgot. 2 years passed, and Joseph remained in prison. One night, Pharaoh had two strange dreams that troubled his spirit. No one in Egypt could explain them. Pharaoh dreamed of 7 fat cows grazing by the Nile. Suddenly, 7 skinny cows appeared and ate the fat cows, but remained as thin as before. In the second dream, 7 full golden heads of grain grew on one stalk. Then, 7 thin, scorched heads swallowed them up. Pharaoh awoke, frightened. The cupbearer suddenly remembered Joseph and told Pharaoh about the young Hebrew, who could interpret dreams through God's wisdom. Joseph was quickly brought from the prison, shaved, and dressed in fine clothes. He stood before Pharaoh with calm confidence. Pharaoh said, "I have heard you can interpret dreams." Joseph replied, "I cannot, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he seeks." Joseph listened carefully and explained, "Pharaoh's dreams are 1, 7 fat cows, and full heads of grain, mean 7 years of great abundance in Egypt." He continued, "The 7 skinny cows and empty heads of grain are 7 years of famine. God is warning you of what is to come." Joseph boldly advised Pharaoh, "Choose a wise man to store food during the 7 good years, so Egypt will survive the famine." Pharaoh and his officials were amazed. "Can we find anyone like this man in whom is the Spirit of God?" Pharaoh declared. Pharaoh placed his signet ring on Joseph's finger, dressed him in fine linen robes, and put a gold chain around his neck. Joseph became ruler of Egypt. Riding in Pharaoh's chariot, Joseph was cheered by the people. God had turned his trials into triumph, and Joseph was ready for the mission ahead. The famine spread across the land, and people from many nations came to Egypt for food. Among them were Joseph's brothers, though they did not recognize him. Joseph's heart stirred as he saw his brothers bow, just as in his dreams. But he tested them to see if their hearts had changed. After a series of tests, Joseph could no longer hold back his tears. He cried out, "I am Joseph, your brother. Do not be afraid." He forgave them completely. "What you meant for harm, God used for good, to save many lives," Joseph declared with joy. Joseph invited his whole family to live in Egypt. His father Jacob wept with joy as he hugged his long-lost son. The family was finally together again. Joseph's journey from the pit to the palace showed that God is always in control. Through trials and triumphs, faith and forgiveness bring victory. Joseph's life was full of ups and downs, pits, prisons, and palaces. Yet, through it all, he never stopped trusting God's plan. We learn that God can use even hard times for good. What others intend for harm, God can turn into a blessing. Joseph also teaches us the power of forgiveness. Instead of anger, he chose love. Forgiveness brought healing to his family. Another lesson is patience. God's promises may take time, but they always come true. Joseph's dreams were fulfilled in God's perfect timing. Joseph's story reminds us, stay faithful, forgive others, and trust God's plan. When life feels uncertain, remember, God is always working for your good. What an amazing story of Joseph and his faith in God. Now, let's bring the story to life with a fun hands and craft activity. Welcome, little creators. Today, we'll bring Joseph's famous coat of many colors to life. Are you ready for a fun hands-on adventure? First, gather your materials: colored paper, safety scissors, glue, crayons, and a pencil. We begin by drawing the outline of a coat on a large sheet of paper. Make it big enough to decorate. Now, cut out the coat shape with your safety scissors. Ask an adult for help if needed. Next comes the fun part, adding the colors. Choose your favorite colors for Joseph's coat. Glue the colored paper pieces onto the coat, creating bright, beautiful patterns. Add extra decorations, like stars, dots, or even little patches, to make it truly unique. When the front of your coat is done, flip it over and decorate the back too. Now hold up your coat and admire your work. Isn't it bright and cheerful? Just like Joseph's? If you want to wear your coat, ask an adult to cut holes for your arms and neck. Slip on your colorful coat and pretend you are Joseph in his amazing story of faith and dreams. Take a picture or show your family. Your colorful creation will brighten their day. Do you know why Joseph's coat was so special? It reminded him that God had a big plan for his life. Your coat is a reminder too, that you are special, creative, and full of purpose. Gather your friends or family and show off your colorful Joseph coats together. If you want, you can even act out Joseph's story using your coats in a mini play. Take time to thank God for giving you creativity and for always having a plan for your life. Your colorful coat is a symbol of hope, faith, and God's love, just like Joseph's was. Be proud of your creation, and remember that every color tells a story of God's blessings. Invite others to make their own Joseph's coat, and share the joy of creativity together. Take one last look at your coat and say, "I am wonderfully made." This coat is more than a craft. It's a memory of faith, family, and fun. Great job, little creator. Share your colorful coat with the world. And remember Joseph's story. With God, even the smallest dream can grow into a big adventure. We're so glad you joined us today. Remember, just like Joseph, God has a beautiful plan for your life too. We'd love for you, your friends, and your family to come back for more stories and fun crafts. So don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow. See you next time. Shalom!